What's going on, guys? Dare here with Fantasy Football Advice, coming at you with another fantasy football video. Today, we are going over the biggest value pick at every position. Really difficult to hone this down to just one player each position, but I think we definitely made a strong case for why these players deserve to be there. Before we do get into the video though, stat of the day. Yesterday's stat of the day was which tight end led the league in contested catch rate. The correct answer was Jonnu Smith. Unfortunately, nobody got this right at the time of recording. As for today's stat of the day, among running backs with at least 150 carries, who faced 8+ defenders in the box on the highest percentage of their carries? Leave your answer in the comments section down below. We'll be happy to let you know who wins in tomorrow's video. Also, guys, be sure to check out our website, thefantasyfootballadvice.com. The link is in the description box below. Our draft package is live. Not only is it loaded with information guaranteed to help you win your league, but you'll also gain access for the entire season, have access to our weekly rankings, be eligible for exclusive giveaways, as well as gain access to our private community. If that interests you, or you want to check out just some of the free tools available on our website, go ahead and click on the link in the description box below and check out our website today. With that out of the way though, let's hop right into the video. We're going to start with running back, and the first player we're going to mention is David Montgomery of the Chicago Bears. Now, I understand I've included him in other value pick videos, but it would really be a disservice if I go through all of the running backs I think are values and I don't make David Montgomery the biggest one. He probably has the easiest pathway to getting one of the largest workloads when compared to any running back being drafted around him. Right now, he is coming off the board somewhere in the neighborhood of a back-end RB2, high-end RB3, which is a really weird spot for me to see him coming off the board because he finished as RB24 in half PPR leagues last season, which means you're basically drafting him at his floor. His ADP does not seem to be climbing, so it's pretty safe to say this is a player you can get a major value on draft day, especially when you look at the amount of volume you're going to be getting from him. Last season, David Montgomery ranked 13th in rush attempts. That's right, even more rush attempts than Aaron Jones himself. Aaron Jones, as we know, finished as the RB2 last season, but that was largely on the back of A, his efficiency, and B, his ability to score in the red zone. David Montgomery's 242 rush attempts, which tied Josh Jacobs, only netted him 889 rushing yards. He ran the ball at 3.7 yards per carry. So when you compare him to a player like Aaron Jones, who had 6 less rush attempts, he was able to run the ball at 4.6 yards per clip, which resulted in 1,084 rush yards. But where the biggest disparity in the fantasy points comes from was Aaron Jones had 16 touchdowns. It's one of the reasons we don't like Aaron Jones, but David Montgomery, he saw variance in a completely different way. He has so many different opportunities to be able to outperform what he did in 2019 that could instantly make him that much more fantasy valuable. Volume, while it is one of those reasons we could definitely see improving in 2020, it does not need to in order for him to smash this current ADP. Even if he brought his efficiency up from 3.7 to just a mere 4 yards per carry, that's 968 projected rushing yards across the entire season, and that's not even expecting him to take a big step forward in efficiency, nor is it expecting him to even gain any more volume. If you actually look at the volume that he received from the beginning of the season towards the end of the season, he was trending upward. From weeks 8 on, he actually averaged 17.1 rush attempts on the ground. Compare that to the 11.8 attempts he had compiled on average in the games leading up to week 8. Spread that volume average across an entire season, and you're talking about a player who would receive over 270 touches on the ground. Even if his efficiency average remained the same and he was getting that type of volume, which he already had proven to do through a large sample size, he's already a 1,000 yard rusher at a mere 3.7 yards per carry. Even giving him a modest bump in efficiency to about 4.2 yards per carry, which is definitely doable. We're talking nearly 1,150 rushing yards, definitely a number that would have been within the top 8 last season and would likely be in the top 10 for 2020. So I think we're all on the same page when it comes to security in his floor and the potential upside for him rushing on the ground, but let's talk a little bit about the passing game. Tariq Cohen was bad last year. I'm talking really bad in the receiving game. He not only led all running backs in drops, but he also posted his lowest yards per reception total of his career and also regressed in catch rate when compared to a season ago. Despite that, he received over 100 targets in the passing game. Definitely a number we can see moving more in favor of David Montgomery, who actually looked better in this area of the field. He caught 25 of his 35 targets, which is over a 70% catch rate. He averaged 7 7.4 yards per reception, which is definitely respectable for a player not known for his pass catching skill set, and definitely promising for him getting more involvement for the 2020 season. Matt Nagy not coming off of a Coach of the Year performance like he was in 2018, his leash is going to be a bit shorter. He's going to have to play the players who are actually performing. So Mitchell Trubisky, if he doesn't step up, expect Nick Foles to come in. Tariq Cohen, if he's not performing anything like he did in these 2 previous years and not like he did in 2019, well, he's going to see the bench, and David Montgomery is going to be more featured in the passing game. Matt Nagy, he's not going to have the luxury of playing underperformers, because another bad season from him may ultimately lead him to be on the chopping block, so expect him to put in the players who are producing. I'm going to move over to the quarterback position, and the greatest value pick at quarterback was between a few names for me. You're definitely looking for a late round guy. You want them to be relevant in 12-team leagues. So although I did have Gardner Minshew as one of the better values, I didn't want to include him because he's likely not going to be drafted in your regular 12-team league, so maybe he's a guy you look out on the waiver wire, but that left 2 other options for me. That was Cam Newton and Joe Burrow. Both are undeniably great values, but I did end up leaning in the favor of Joe Burrow for this one, just because he is being drafted at quarterback 20. We have him ranked just outside the top 12 QBs, so this is definitely a player you could be able to nab in your home leagues, even if they're drafting QB heavy. The formula for Burrow, it's pretty simple. Before we talk about his situation, let's talk a little bit about him as a player. To start, Burrow has all of the traits that anybody is looking for in a 2020 quarterback. He's accurate, he throws with anticipation, he has impeccable timing, which allows his receivers to set themselves up to perform a lot with yards after catch. If you take a look at his 2019 stats, they're quite remarkable. We're talking in 15 games, a player who completed 76.3% of his passes for 5,671 yards, and his touchdown to interception ratio, we're talking 60-6. Remarkable numbers, but what's going to help him be even more valuable for fantasy is going to be his ability to scramble on the ground. While not asked to be doing that in Ohio State, while he was in LSU, he performed very well in this area and very consistently as well. His 2-year low was 368 rushing yards, and he was also able to notch in 7 rushing touchdowns in 2018 to go along with 5 additional rushing touchdowns in 2019. In the NFL, if you want to be a successful fantasy quarterback, the difference oftentimes does come down to the players who are able to get it done scrambling, able to add in a few additional rushing touchdowns. We've seen it with players like Kirk Cousins. It's one of the reasons that everybody loves Gardner Minshew this year. And it's definitely a reason that Burrow has a higher floor and a higher ceiling for 2019. If you take a look at the team that he's on, he is loaded with weapons. In the receiving game, we have AJ Green, Tyler Boyd, John Ross, and T. Higgins. Don't forget about a little player named Auden Tate as well, who can perform if other players go down. And that is a logical concern. These receivers have never really truly stayed healthy outside of Boyd, but this team is really deep as well. Joe Burrow is the type of talent to be able to get all of his receivers involved, and it's undeniable that if these receivers do stay healthy, it could be one of the strongest wide receiver cores in the entire league. Let's move over to tight end and talk a little bit about Hayden Hurst of the Atlanta Falcons. As we know, he is taking over the position of Austin Hooper, who has now left in free agency and is a Cleveland Brown. As for Hurst, this is one of those rare situations where opportunity is going to be meeting ability. Part of the reason why the trade was able to go through was because Hurst was really hungry to get out there and perform, but it was unlikely he was going to be able to pass Mark Andrews significantly on the depth chart, almost wasting away that first round talent. Now, the trade ultimately was Hurst and a 4th round pick to the Falcons in exchange for a 2nd and a 5th round pick in the 2020 draft. Not a super heavy investment, but what the Falcons really knew coming into this trade was that Hayden Hurst really wanted to show the world what he could do. This is on record of him saying this, and you always want to bet on a player who's trying to bet on himself, and he's actually finding himself in an opportunity where he could see immediate volume. The Falcons rank 1st in vacated targets from a season ago, largely on the back of losing players like Sanu and Austin Hooper. So we do know that not only are the targets there, but the targets for that position are also there. Austin Hooper ranked 6th in targets last season at the tight end position, coming in with 97, but he also missed 3 games. If you take his targets per game and average that out over a 16-game pace, he's right there behind only George Kittle and Travis Kelce. What we do also know is that the Atlanta Falcons are going to be one of the pass heaviest teams in the NFL. That's not going to change, and Matt Ryan has ranked third in pass attempts over each of the past 2 seasons. Now, it would be silly to expect Hayden Hurst to just jump in and command the same target market share that Austin Hooper commanded last season, but the tight end position itself, it doesn't require a ton of targets, and with the Falcons being a strong offense, even if he can get 65 to 70+% of the targets that were going Austin Hooper's direction, that's way more than enough to outperform where he's being drafted. Understandably, banking on Hayden Hurst is going to be a bank on upside. We haven't ever seen Hayden Hurst perform, but he is a first-round talent, and with a lot of the tight ends that are going around him, they haven't shown us anything consistently year over year as well. A lot of them are in their first contract in the NFL, have not yet performed like a top 10 or top 8 tight end, so why not bank on one that's coming into the best situation, one with a lot of passing volume, one that has historically had an MVP quarterback, and one that has more vacated targets than any other team in the league, and you have a player stepping into a role that we'd already seen been fruitful. The best wide receiver value pick did come down to just a few names. Those names were players like Calvin Ridley, Terry McLaurin, but the actual winner was going to be DJ Moore of the Carolina Panthers, and I know the price to get him on draft day isn't that cheap, so that's not allowing for a lot of room for value. But we still have DJ Moore ranked 6 spots above ADP and 5 spots above ECR, so we are very high on DJ Moore this year. DJ Moore finished the 2019 season as the wide receiver 18, but he did only play in 15 games. His week 16 performance, in which he played on just 6 total snaps, is also weighing down his averages, but if you take a look at what he was able to do from weeks 15 and before, DJ Moore was playing phenomenally. Excluding his week 16 matchup, in the previous 10 games leading up to that, DJ Moore had 6 or more receptions in 9 of 10 games. That's a massive floor, especially if you factor in the receiving yardage that goes along with 6 receptions. He's also a player that has proven to have an ability to be used in the rushing game. While they are trying to move him a bit out of that direction for his own health and safety concerns, it's still an aspect of his game that gives him an advantage over other receivers being drafted in this range. Between weeks 9 through 15, a 7-week span, DJ Moore averaged over 100 receiving yards and even scored 3 times. These are actually figures we could see DJ Moore continuing to replicate as he starts the 2020 season, and expect even more room for upside in the red zone. 3 scores is respectable through 7 games, but it's not on the high end of what he could potentially receive. Kyle Allen was absolutely horrendous in the red zone. We're talking about a quarterback rating outside of the top 40. Teddy Bridgewater, while he was the quarterback of the Saints, albeit he did have Michael Thomas, he was a top 10 quarterback in rating in that area of the field. Keep in mind though, we also saw Teddy Bridgewater's ability to hyper-focus the leading receiver. Michael Thomas was still the #1 fantasy asset regardless of Drew Brees starting or Teddy Bridgewater replacing him. DJ Moore is the leading receiver, the alpha on this team, and with Teddy Bridgewater already proving he can funnel targets to that type of player, the situation for DJ Moore could potentially look even more up than it did in 2019. We cannot stress enough how poor this defense is going to be as it heads into the season. Expect a lot of pass-heavy game scripts, and it's a team who is going to be very used to throwing the ball because you have a running back like Christian McCaffrey who commands such a high target market share. So you know this team is always going to be looking for the opportunities in the passing game, and for a team that already ranked 31st in points allowed that just lost Luke Kuechly, their defense is going to be doing them 0 favors in 2020. But guys, that's going to do it for this video. We really hope you enjoyed. If you did, how about hitting that like button? If you're new to the channel, please hit that subscribe button. We thank you all for watching, and we'll catch you on the next one.